the Brutally Honest podcast. I'm your host, Brianna Sprintz, and today we have a special guest on, Patrick Ecstatic, who is an enlightened teacher in a low-income area with the mission of impacting his students positively. Okay, that was a load full, but Patrick, we have you on.
That's right.
How are you doing? How are you feeling about being on this podcast right now?
Really grateful. So thank you, Brianna. I'm happy to be here to share what I've experienced and my vision for humanity moving forward. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, you just have this overall goal of wanting to impact the world positively. I've noticed about you. Like, everything you do is with the end goal of, like, positive impact. And you're also a teacher, so I feel like those go hand in hand, and it's, like, such an amazing thing that you want to help your students and stuff. Do you want to talk more about, like, what it's like being a teacher and where this vision of impacting your students came?
Absolutely. Yeah, first of all, there's enough negativity in the world. You know, that's what we experience over 80% of the time, and that's just how our minds are conditioned. So that's what inspired me to become a teacher is on this spiritual path that I'm on. I've found the path of enlightenment and walk it every single day. And we need more regular people in the world who are enlightened, who don't suffer, who aren't self-obsessed, who don't dwell on themselves, who are actually service-minded. Because all the greatest people who have ever lived have been of service to others. All the most famous people of all time, Dr. Martin Luther King, even further than that, the great philosophers, Socrates, anybody whose name that you hear was just of service to people. That's why they're famous. And I come from a place of not wanting to be famous, but of wanting humanity not just to survive, but thrive on this planet. Because we're currently destroying the planet and destroying each other, and there's no reason for it. It's simply optional human suffering because people are self-obsessed and disconnected from each other, themselves, and the earth.
Yeah. So usually I bring on influencers on this podcast, but recently I did this trip to India, which is part of the same program we did, ACOM, where I don't have my phone for 2 weeks and I don't talk for 2 weeks, and it's just like this whole inner journey of like working on yourself and like figuring out the truth of what's really going on in your inner world and healing it all so you're not in a suffering state. And now that I'm back here, I was excited to interview people who also did the program, and then I'm also really excited to interview someone who is a teacher, because I do usually interview people who are seen as someone that everyone wants to be in society, or like seen as successful, but no one really recognizes like what teachers truly do for this world. I feel like it's like you guys are the underdogs of this world. You do so much more than like you get the recognition for.
It's true. Yeah, we have a lasting impact, which is what I appreciate about the profession. I mean, I still remember and impacted daily by teachers I had, 20 years ago. So that's what I appreciate, and that's why I know it's so important to have enlightened teachers and everyday people who are enlightened, not people who are just hiding in the Himalayas like, oh, I found enlightenment, let me just keep this to myself and not have to deal with anything. No, that's not my vision, and that's not the vision of my gurus and the organization that has provided me all this training, ACOM, in India. The vision is to be in the world, be enlightened, but help others.
Yeah.
And it's more than anything I can say or do for anyone else. It's coming from that state, that enlightened state of calm. It just transmits an energy field that can transform without me saying a word.
So what is an enlightened teacher to you?
An enlightened teacher is somebody who walks the walk and leads by example. Okay. You can have all the fancy words and wisdom that you want, which helps. It's part of the path. But ultimately, it's somebody who's in that state and transmits their state to others energetically.
What brought you to wanting to become this? Like, did you have any big breakthroughs or big realizations? Like, one day you just woke up and you're like, I just want to impact the world and be a teacher and help my students and stuff. Like, how did you come to this?
For me, I've always questioned why people are suffering so much. We're on this beautiful planet. I've always appreciated Earth more than anything, how beautiful this is and how precious life is. And we have a bunch of people who are just depressed, including I was extremely depressed and unmotivated and disconnected. And more than anything, it's been a calling for me. Like, I didn't wake up one day and say, I want to walk the path of enlightenment. Like, I woke up one day and said, I'm freaking miserable. I need to make some changes. I was on 3 different types of medications, just drugged up and still just suffering, just felt it inside, just a horrible tightness and a misery. I was unhappy in my relationships and just wasn't living the life that I wanted. And it's like, I got to do something. And, I read a book that basically said that spirituality is an essential element as part of the human psyche. You need spirituality. It's not just like a nice to have. It's like an essential
What
part
is
of
spirituality? I feel like there's so many different concepts of it. Like, what is it to you?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And spirituality is what I thought it was when I first found out was, it's religion. So I need to go back to the Catholic Church and start going to church every Sunday and be told what to do and all this. So that's what I first tried to explore, and it just didn't resonate. So, I read some more articles, and later in that book it said that, well, one option for getting your spiritual fix is meditation. I was like, what the heck is meditation? Isn't that weird thing, that you're like, Om? It has such a silly...
There's such a weird stigma around spirituality, and, like, even now, like, bringing you on this podcast, this is so new for what I usually do on social media, because I don't want to come across as, like, this, like, hippie who's, like, meditate every day and I love crystals. And I feel like my goal is to get rid of that stigma. And, like, you understand that there's so much more to it than just an aesthetic.
Absolutely. It's so misunderstood, and it's because of the way it's been portrayed in pop culture and on TV and things like that. And so, but I just dove in and started trying it. I downloaded an app called Calm maybe 6 years ago and just did my first meditation, a beautiful guided breath meditation, and fell in love with it immediately. I just felt an instant shift, and have been practicing ever since, every single day. And it's just kind of snowballed, where it's become the absolute driving force in my life. And I found ACOM, and they've added consistent yoga practices to my daily ritual, and deep connection with nature, and then that deep connection with others, which naturally leads to a state of compassion and actually feeling the other, feeling that oneness with the other, not feeling a sense of separation. And I was as disconnected as you can get, just totally felt like an outsider, like I didn't belong, was very shy, didn't want to talk to people or step outside my comfort zone. And now it's been a 180 where I'm constantly seeking service, seeking how can I help others.
Yeah. See, they call it a spiritual journey for a reason, because it's not something you just get overnight. It's a whole journey. And a lot of people have to start somewhere. And usually people just start with meditating, and then they try that, and they're like, okay, this is cool. And then some people will just give up and be like, I don't want to do it anymore. But that's, like, what I feel like the difference is between, like, someone who's, like, a true seeker, is where they just don't stop and they keep going and keep going. And then eventually they get to a point where it improves and they find better sources and better ways of, like, getting there faster. What do you think was your ultimate shift in your spiritual journey to where it started to advance at a faster rate?
That's a great question, and it was hands down. It was Ekam Tapa's the month-long program where I actually went to India. That was just an absolute accelerator, where I was making some progress and, like, feeling a little bit better. And but when I went to India, the energy there is just on a whole different level.
It really is.
And one thing that it did was eliminate any doubts about this path, because I felt it. I felt it in person.
Everyone has doubts. I feel like it's so hard to, like, not have doubts about it, or people are judging you, or your thoughts are, like, enhanced when you're doing it because you're recognizing them for the first time. You're like, oh, there's a whole world going on here, so you have to face it. And that's, like, what makes it so hard, is, like, a lot of people don't want to face that.
Very true, very true. And it is hard to face because there's a natural resistance, because our egos want to remain separate. They want to remain small. They don't want us to grow. Okay, then we have these things called imaginal cells, which are the enlightened cells that want to, take charge, but for the better, but the little cells feel threatened by that, but there's a deep understanding that those imaginal cells are the ones you want to feed. Because those are the ones that are going to take you
Or, like, your thoughts in your head, that's, like, anxiety telling you, like, to go about this way about life and that way, and, like, this is wrong or right.
Absolutely.
But it's really just thoughts.
Absolutely, yeah. And at ACOM, they would call that the duality.
Duality mind. Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Well, I just got back from tapas that you did. How long ago did you do tapas?
I did it in fall of 2022, so about a year and a half.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, so I just got back from that program. It's been a week, and it's so weird getting back to the real world, because it just takes you out of it. and it just shows you so much more to this world and your life and like what it truly means to be in a good place and not like fake it. And now that I'm here, I'm like transitioning because I didn't have my phone for 2 weeks. I couldn't talk for 2 weeks, and I just was able to finally be present with myself and like enjoy nature, enjoy my surroundings, slow down, chat less, not have so much inner chatter. Do you have any advice for the transition? Because it's hard being back now because I'm recognizing myself go back to the old patterns, and I miss the Brianna tapas.
Oh yeah, yeah. Trust the process. That's the thing. The integration is definitely like, did this work? And at first I went back to some old habits. You know, my number one thing that I was dealing with before tapas was a binge eating disorder, which came back.
Been there.
When I came back from tapas.
Yes.
So, you know, just overeating, you know, just
That's
to
so
escape.
weird. I'm experiencing that right now.
Okay, yeah.
Because the food there, like, you eat so healthy. We're on, like, a vegan diet, no sugar, no processed food. And it's just everything they give you, and they make it freshly every morning straight from the garden. And then so you're there and you're just craving, thinking of all the food you want. We make jokes about the food. Like Ananda Giri was speaking, he was talking about like a margarita thin sliced pizza and how you'll get that pizza and you'll eat it. Like he's so good at like doing that, explaining the food and making it sound so good. For those of you who don't know, that's one of the monks who lead the course. And now I'm here and I'm like, I want to eat all that food. I want to eat that margarita thin sliced pizza.
Yeah, I feel like that's very natural, and it's part of the ego's defense mechanism, you know, like, oh, let me go back to old comforts so I can escape this evolution that's happening inside me. But the seed has been planted, and it's going to sprout. For me, it took a couple months before I really like started consistently like doing my practices and really nurturing those states. And now it's just automatic because I see that there's no other way to true peace inside.
Yeah. I think one thing about tapas is it's so much structure, and then I come here and I don't have as much structure. For those of you who don't know, we have to wake up at 4:30 a.m. to the sound of a gong. No phone, so that's our alarm, and the gong's loud. The first week you hate the gong, the second week you start to like it, the third week you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But you wake up 4:30 a.m. and then you have an hour to get ready, and then you have to go to the outside area at 5:30 a.m. for a 45-minute meditation. 2 meditations, one that is 45 minutes and one that's 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then
Soul Sync and Chakra Dhyana.
Yeah, and then we do yoga, and then we do, I can never say it, Sancha, how do you say it, the nature?
Asatchala.
Asatchala, where you sit in nature for a good 30 minutes and just watch the sunrise. Mind you, you're doing this without any phones, no distractions, no talking. You're literally just having to focus on yourself, which was very hard for me in the beginning. But
just deep communion with nature, just hanging out with the trees, hanging out with the sky, hanging out with the monkeys. Oh, that was my favorite.
Oh yeah, they have the monkeys on the campus just roaming around. But then after that, you get a little break for breakfast, an hour break, and then you go straight to class, which is around 4 hours, and you're just taking in the teachings, which are amazing, life-changing teachings. You can't journal, and you can't have your phone again. I keep emphasizing on that. It's just you. So it really makes you just bring in that presence and just flow with a structured life. And your day ends around 8, and it's basically about 6 hours of classes with a couple of breaks.
Yeah, and the day ends with a huge celebration, a great dance and chanting called a kirtan, and it's just absolutely blissful.
Yeah.
They put you to work. You know, you have to work hard and really face the inner dirt and see things that you don't want to see. But they know how to play hard too. You know, the celebrations are like no other, and there's just no better feeling than coming through all that at the end of the day. And then having completed the program, I'm just so grateful to have
rewarding.
to have found this path and ACOM and this organization, and the amazing community members like you that we get to share the path with is a huge part of the fun, you know, and it's an essential part because we all support each other and we can share experiences and really grow together. It's
amazing how beautiful this community is. I also find something so interesting about your saying they play hard. The rewarding feeling of having that long structured day and then dancing and being with the community and just seeing how much transition people have gone through and how much change they've already had in one day is just so beautiful. And I feel I was explaining the structured life as it's a hard thing. like in the beginning, but it was hard, but it's so rewarding. And then the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and the more grateful you are for it, and like the more you want it in your life, because especially if you don't come from a structured life, it's like always been something you've desired. Like for me, it's always been something I've desired but wasn't able to do. So it's like when I go to Tapas, I have no choice to live that structured life. I guess I'm wondering for you, how has having that structured routine from Tapas impacted your regular life back in the U.S.?
It was everything for me. That having that structure consistently for 28 days is what I've come home with and really been able to implement into my life, because that's what I was lacking. I was inconsistent with my meditation practices. Always had to force myself to do it. Didn't really like yoga, but Tapas changed that for me. Tapas was where I really got to observe what transformed my states from that old depressed little me to the enlightened me that is sitting here today. And one of the things that I saw that would transform that every single time was yoga. The yoga routines that they taught me, it was like it would turn on a dime from the self-obsession, like, oh, when's breakfast? I'm uncomfortable. I want to go back to sleep. And then we would do like 10 minutes of yoga, and I'd be like, oh, I feel amazing.
It's those little things that can change it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that works every time. And now that's the very first thing I do as soon as I get out of bed, is just I go on my balcony outdoors with the fresh air. It's usually like somewhere between 1 and 4 in the morning. I'm up super early now because I don't waste all my energy in suffering and self-obsession, so I only need a few hours of sleep. So I'm out there on my balcony doing yoga, connecting with nature, and I just feel amazing every morning now. Instead of sleeping in as late as I can because I'm dreading the day, I'm like, let's co-create with the divine today. Let's be awesome. Let's be an enlightened leader, and that's my mission every single day. And that's what I didn't have before Tapas, was that deep devotion and dedication to elevating my state of consciousness right from the get-go every single day. And Tapas just has made that automatic for me. And it's not anything mental that I've had to do, having to force things or anything, or like willpower my way into it. It's like a deep understanding, like, oh, this is what works, and this is the only way to grow. This is the only way to be happy, to be at peace inside, and to be able to be of service to others.
Yeah, it's crazy because I've always had a really big problem with being lazy and getting stuff done, like where I will procrastinate to the absolute last minute, and I thought there was no way around it. But we did Tapas, and like during Tapas, I was like in such a better place than I was before when I was procrastinating, and I had to pack for leaving soon, and I decided to pack 3 days earlier, which usually I would pack like till the absolute last minute. I decided to pack 3 days earlier, like before I leave. And I remember just packing and thinking like, wow, I have so much energy right now. I'm able to organize everything. I'm able to put in this pile and that pile. And like, I just want to keep going and going and going, when I used to never have that motivation or drive. And it was just such a good feeling to be able to like get up and do things and want to like live life and be productive.
I love the way you put that. And yes, it's really nice to have that reverence for life.
Reverence for life, I love that.
Seeing everything as a chore and dreading everything, it's like there's actually joy. Joy actually exists. And, I know we're not the only ones who have experienced that. I remember someone sharing at my Tapas like, I got it. I never experienced joy before. And this guy's in like his 50s, and he had never experienced joy, true joy.
True joy. A lot of people say they're like, oh, I'm happy to... No, there's more going on. That's true joy.
I mean, there's probably a lot of people just who have been sleepwalking their whole lives that don't realize it, that have been so just possessed by the prison of the mind, that self-obsession, that... the simple things like, when am I going to eat again? I'm too tired. I didn't get enough sleep. And none of those things are actually problems. That's all just suffering.
Yeah, you're just not in the present moment.
Exactly. And that's what Tapas has done for me, is brought me into the present, brought me to be able to come out of my mind, come out of the self-obsession, what's in it for me, and, how can I serve? What can I give today? And a deep understanding that all comes back around anyways.
Yeah.
So giving is receiving. And now I'm open to that flow, that energetic flow of giving, which ultimately comes back tenfold anyways.
So in the beginning, I talked about how you are an enlightened teacher in a low income area. And I specifically mentioned low income because I was curious about like what drove you to help out more in that area, and like if you feel like there's a mission or something that you want to do for your students.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I appreciate that question. So this is my first year being a teacher. I was inspired while I was at Tapas to change careers and become a teacher. I had just been laid off from my most recent sales job before going to Tapas and had no idea what I was going to do next career-wise. And so I had kind of just great, profound clarity when I was over there. And during one of the deep meditations that you talked about, it was dropped into my consciousness that like you're going to be a teacher, and it was clear as day. And there was some questions in the mind like, well, I don't have the right degree, I don't have the money to spend to go back to school, and all these doubts. But ultimately, deep down, there was no doubt because I had that clarity, and it was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know what I'd have to do, but I set the intention while I was over there in India. I said, I'm going to become a teacher. So when I came back, I got to work, and it ended up being easier than I thought. You know, I didn't have to go back to school. I was certified within 2 months, and then found this job within 4 months. And it just called to me. You know, I'm divinely guided every step that I take. When I'm unclear about something, I ask for support, and I find most of that clarity out in nature. You know, that's where I connect with the divine strongest, is out on the desert hiking trails where it's quiet, it's peaceful, and I'm super connected out there. So I had some doubts in my mind about taking this job. I wasn't sure if it was the right one. I wasn't sure if it was the area I wanted to be in. I thought it might want to be closer to home. But, you know, I went out there in the desert and asked the right questions, and it was a yes. It was a full body yes. And I'm so glad I ended up there because that's where this type of energy is needed most. You know, it's not like a terrible area. You know, it's very diverse. 60% of our students are Hispanic, like 20% African American, and then like 10% white, and the rest every other race. And I really appreciate the diversity, and that I'm having an impact on so many families of different ethnicities, and that's where the energy is needed most. Is you know, consciousness is lower, and I feel like I'm elevating it, not just with the way I teach, you know, from a state of calm and understanding and deep connection and patience with these students, and really leading by example, but also in some of what I say. Certainly, I'm not teaching ACOM teachings in a public school. No, not at all. But I am able to mention things like being of service to others, and the importance of connecting with your community and things like that. As a social studies teacher and teaching civics, that's a huge part of what I teach is staying connected with others, being of service to others, and I think some of them are getting it.
Yeah. Wow, that was beautiful. I'm so excited to see more of how your path unfolds. But I just want to say thank you for being on the Brutally Honest podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Do you have any last-minute advice or things you want to say to the world?
I would just say that the spiritual path is the only way to true peace. I may not have much to show for it, but if you had a before and after of my consciousness before Akam Tapas and after, everybody would go. Every single person who saw this would be like, I'm going that. So I may not have much money or much to show for it yet, but all I can say is I'm at peace within myself and truly happy like most of the time. And before I was extremely depressed and just dragging through the day. So I honestly wish this path for everybody. And I believe now that humanity can transform. I don't believe that we'll destroy ourselves, even though it looks that way sometimes, because we're so caught up in overconsumption and polluting the earth. But now that I've seen my own transformation and just like how fast it's happened, and this Tapas program just churning out enlightened people, just like very easily. You know, you go over there for 2 weeks, then you go for another 2 weeks. Some people complete a 6-week program, but whatever it takes. And it's really not as hard as you might think. And the vision of ACOM is that all we need is 0.001% of humanity to be enlightened, and it'll create what's called a phase transition, and we'll see an exponential shift in human consciousness, and things will start to get accelerated, and more people will become enlightened, and it'll create like a domino effect of enlightenment, and humanity will not just survive, but we will thrive on this planet. We'll clean up our mess, we'll start taking care of each other, we'll start taking care of the earth, and we will have the golden age, which has been prophesized to be 1,000 years of peace. And I think we can do more than 1,000. I think we can keep this going.
Yeah. Also, guys, I know there's a lot of people on social media talking about this program and that program and stuff. When we talk about ACOM Tapas, it's not like you have to buy this program or you have to do this for a better life, because I feel like it can come off a little like off-putting when someone's like, I did this and now you should do it. We're just speaking from our experiences. And honestly, I've tried a lot of different work before. I've done a lot of different seminars before. I've done Tony Robbins. I've done Joe Dispenza. And none of them have impacted me like the way ACOM has. So I just wanted to share about it with everyone on social media, but to each their own, whether it's something you like or don't like. I'm just going through life, and like I feel like you are too. We're just experiencing things, and like when something's like amazing, we just want to share it with the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, it comes from a place of compassion and service. And hey, I got no use just hogging this piece to myself. You know, if everyone else around me is suffering, you know, that's no fun. So I want some other people to join the party, and you know, let's dance together.
Well, that was Patrick Ecstatic. Thank you for being on.
It was a pleasure.
It was fun being brutally honest with you guys.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, of course.